Emotional algebra, where the heart meets the math. What is integral is derivative as you figure out your path. Power plus emotions equals more than you can see. Listening to the wisdom of
Welcome to Emotional Algebra with Dr. E. Emotional Algebra is a podcast that helps listeners to understand the subtle calculations people make every day in their relationships with others. It's a podcast to help us all become better people through understanding the different variables that drive our behaviors. I'm your co-host, Andrew Tavani.
And I'm Dr. E.
Yes, Dr. E. Look at this. So for people out there who are listening or even watching, especially those watching, Dr. E and I, we don't really talk a whole lot before these episodes. We send a little calendar invite or whatever, but it's not like we coordinate. We say, hey, we're going to talk about all these things today, and this is what I'm going to be wearing, blah, 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 right? Right. And there's no wardrobe department as far as I'm aware of. I don't know if you have one on your end, but we don't. But look what happened today. We are both breaking some rules of the on-camera variety.
Yeah, this wearing plaid on TV is generally a glamour don't, because the patterns often with the cameras often mess up. Now the other thing I'm noticing is I've got green in this shirt, and I think that the green screen is picking up a little spots of green here and there. Plus, if I move real fast with this, what happens with the resolution of the images on the screen?
Either that or you're wearing a slightly radioactive shirt, Dr.
Yeah. Well, it's close to my heart, so maybe my heart's radioactive. I just don't know it.
So we both did it today, but nonetheless, we are going forward. And I've done it a couple of times before. You are usually in more solid tones.
Yep. Well, usually I stick to that, and I just kind of wasn't thinking. So we're just gonna be rebels today, you know.
Rebels with a cause.
Exactly.
We have multiple causes today, right?
We do.
But before we get to that cause, I think.
Well, I know I wanted to bring up something that and this is a health check. So today we have so many issues with people are getting exposure to the sun, and I've always been somebody who likes the sun and don't wear hats a lot, and did my yearly skin check, and actually have this little thing here that was burned off. It was precancerous, so I feel pretty fortunate to have caught out of that phase, and my wife really continues to encourage me, get that skin check. A lot of guys ignore their health, something they don't want to think about. I think it's more about fear than it is about strength, and wanting to hide behind that idea of strength. I don't need a doctor, but doctors serve a very positive purpose. And there's a lot of things that are preventive, that if we wait too long and ignore it, those outcomes obviously can really be deadly. So I do get my yearly skin check, and things all checked out, and this was the only thing she found. So
the doctor found it? You didn't notice it? Really?
I didn't. I said, how can you tell? And she goes, thousands of hours.
Yeah, that's her job.
Or practicum, and she had hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans. So, but she just looks really quickly. She says, I train my staff in spotting them very quickly, and they're just things you get used to seeing. So just something that small, to catch it that early, I felt really relieved about. And, there's a lot of other things that people get concerned about. They just ignore. Like, my wife was like, get this one checked out in your back. And my dermatologist calls it a birthday present. It's just kind of an age spot kind of thing. But so I think if you feel afraid of something, that what it might be, don't live in fear. Fear is saying do something about it. Fear says let's avoid pain, and that's where I really want people to continue to learn to see that emotional specificity, to learn about what those emotions are trying to tell us. And fear, worry, concern, terror, all those other, and the many other fear-based emotions, are saying let's try to avoid pain and do something.
Yeah, and so interestingly, the kind of paradox there is the fear wants to avoid pain, but if you continue to act upon that fear, you're going to avoid going to the doctor, and then in some ironic way, you're going to end up with more pain down the road, right?
Well, I think what I'm saying is sometimes we have the fear. So in Chad Foster's episode, he talked about often there's a fear and a counter fear. And, I think in this, we have to look at the fear of knowing our truth is a very real fear that's what keeps me in business in many ways, is helping people to find their truth, to work through their fears. The other standpoint is the fear that says, do something. So we have to realize many of our emotions are multidimensional. We can have emotions about emotions. Even I talk about people often hate their hatred. And so when you hate that feeling of hatred, you're denying the feeling of hate that is just trying to protect you by pushing you away from things that have caused you pain, are causing you pain, and or could cause you pain. So even with that, look at what that emotion is trying to do. And rather than turning another emotion or cognitive defense against it, rationalization, justification, minimization, denial, identification, all those Asians we've talked about, realize that, let's work towards truth. Let's work towards moving forward. Let's work towards listening to what the emotions are really trying to tell us, not what we think they're trying to tell us, because that's so much the important part of what we're doing on emotional algebra here.
And let me ask you this, Dr. E. That was very small. Even from this shot, I can barely see it. But when you turn, I could see it a little better. And of course, when you got in close. But what was the procedure that took that away? And did it hurt at all? Or
It was just that freeze spray. So she just froze it off with a freeze spray.
just a little bit of spray, like a little aerosol?
Yeah, she's like, and it stung a little, but not really. But even now, it just itches. If I don't touch it,
Right.
when I dried my hair, I scraped it. But
in the moment, it was minimally painful.
yeah. And then there was something that I had a little funky thing on my chest I've had for a long time that was a little bump that she's like, well, I think I know what this is, but let's go ahead and take a biopsy. So she took a biopsy of that she put some numbing, some lidocaine in, and then just kind of cut the top of that off. But that I got it checked 15 years ago too, just to make sure. But the more you have things like that are just growing that aren't real, they're not typical skin dermis, and then often you want to look at getting those checked, because the more that it gets irritated, the more there's a chance to mutate. So again,
Right.
it's something else that's easy to ignore, but I'm like, yeah, I don't want to ignore this. Let's get it looked at again.
Yeah. So you took care of it, and then you're good for the next year at least, right?
Absolutely. I already got my appointment, June 9th, 2026.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you got it done. And I think that's right. Actually, I got something. I could tell you this. You can't even see it now, but I did last August got something cut off my face. I had a little thing under my eye. Same thing. I can't even remember. It was so not painful. I can barely even remember. He might have used the spray thing. As you're talking about the spray, it might have been like a freeze thing that he used that just kind of zapped it.
And I do got to say about men's health issues, the best part of evolutions in science are how they test for prostate issues. They just do the blood test now versus the bend over thing.
Oh God, that one's horrible.
Yeah. So now I'm happy with the blood test on that. So
I think that's even more effective too, isn't it? Isn't it a more
probably.
I think it gives a more definitive, like there's less of a chance of them missing it through the blood test than through the physical exam.
Yeah. So it's all good. But men, take care of your health. Ladies, take care of your health. We've got this life to live. Let's make the best of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dr. E. And everyone should do that. Okay, let's switch gears. We've been talking about in recent episodes, a lot of you've really been getting into the songwriting, the AI songwriting, Dr. E. And go ahead.
I got to say, I've since I've been posting, since the channel came up, I've been looking at the views of some of the songs, and I had two songs on grief. One was Transformed that we talked about in the episode, and another one was called Rainstorms of Grief. And that one was about somebody who struggled with, they didn't get along very well with the person who had died or graduated from life, as I say. And it was talking about the bitterness that they felt about being left behind again, to have to deal with the pain and how they moved through that. So in that song, what like I said, what I was kind of impressed with was the number of views that it had. There are other songs, obviously, I would think would get views, but the other thing I've also heard from people is really how they are helping them when they're listening to them to think about things. And even, somebody said, I hadn't thought about this until I heard the song and it made me think about this way. So, music is such an idiosyncratic thing. So with that, what we thought we'd do today was just, I've had some people say, hey, I want to create songs. How can I do that? And somebody's played with it, but they haven't gotten into it. So what we talked about doing today, just off the cuff, was let's go ahead and talk about making a song together and show how can it be done, really how easy it can be. And also just kind of talk about how even with something you have an idea on or something you're working on, what the AI will do is, it adds to it. It's not just taking lyrics you wrote. It doesn't, if you have lyrics, great. I have some lyrics and I use those. And then I also use both Suno, as I said, and ChatGPT to help me create lyrics around concepts and subjects. And then I go back and rewrite the song. So today we thought we'd take a more simplistic approach and just go straight for the, having it right about what we want to try to create.
Right. And so this will demonstrate sort of from a high level how to go about this. We're not going to get in too deep into the nitty gritty of everything you do, because I know you have an even more in-depth sort of production process you take it through before it goes live.
Yep. So like I said, also when I look at the poems I just posted, this week's podcast episode had Second Sight, which is probably one of my favorite poems. That poem was an absolute journey to write. I was woken up being told to write. And when I wrote that one was interesting, whether it was a dream that woke me up or whatever, but that was and then I have to produce all the music using Suno with that being instrumentals that I create the themes and have it work with those. And I might create 15 different songs doing that, and then look at what's right. And I put it in this. So when I'm doing the reading, after the reading's done, I'm adding the music in, I'm putting different songs that I've created and they're seeing, does this fit the flow? Does this fit the flow? Is there variation here? So that's a process in itself. And then when I create a song on Suno, I'll create the song, I'll look at the lyrics, I rewrite the lyrics, I then put it in music, because sometimes you can't really figure out what you want the song to say. And we'll probably talk about this when we create the song, but you want to switch what it says or clarify what the message is. Or I always want to add a Easter egg at the end of what's the song really about? What's the lesson? What's the growth through this? So that's something I'm often working on rewriting. So I listen to those songs 20, 30 times, and then I'll create another version and listen to them like, oh, well, I want this, and I want this beat, or I want this rhythm in the way that it's sung or spoken. So it's a lot of tweaking to get to the production that people often hear. It's not just let me put this idea in here and then create it and then throw it up on there. No, I don't do that at all. It's a labor of love in many ways.
Right. And then just to be clear too, you put it through another, at least 2 layers of production, sort of post-production, let's call it, right?
Yeah. And even then I have my group produce it into video. So let's go ahead and let's go jump to Suno.
It's a brave new world, Dr. E.
It is. It is. It's
all right, here we go.
All right. So what we had set up before is, in our culture, in our world today, we see a lot of issues with, what was the subject, Andrew, we talked about?
We were talking about communication.
Communication.
Yes.
Right. So we see a lot of issues with that between social media, with terms of power, conflict, things that are thrown out there with people who want status, people who are caught in places of arrogance, denial, defiance, holding on to what they want to hold on to, believing what they want to believe. And we've stopped listening. We've talked about that many times on the podcast. So I thought we would go ahead and do this. And you had your reference to a song.
Yes, I was so as we were just discussing it, it popped into my mind that there's a good song, very good song about communication. It's by Led Zeppelin, and it's called Communication Breakdown. Mm-hmm. And that is an old song. As I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to figure out when it was written in 1969. Wow. That song is 31. That thing's almost 60 years old.
56 years old. Yeah.
So
that's crazy. I just went to my age and then subtracted 3 years.
Is that right?
It's easier for me to get to that.
Song is older than both of us.
No, it's I'm 66, so that's why I subtracted the 3 years. So I'm 59.
Oh, you're older than the song. Oh, you don't look that old, Dr. E.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I know a lot of people have no idea. So I
Yeah.
just keep
Okay,
it
so
that
you're
way.
older than the song.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. My brother's band used to play Led Zeppelin in his rock band in the 70s. Rainbow Blessing was the name of that song. And actually one of the singer for his band is part owner in a bar in Hong Kong called the Wanch. And he still plays. He's 7 years older than me. So he's 67, 66. And he still plays out and loves to do it. And it's crazy to see, what he's done with.
Are they still playing under the name Rainbow Blessing?
No, my that was a high school band
Okay.
that was their high school rock band that they used to play around battle the band stuff, and he played flute and sax and tambourine and sang, and he loved music. He
Because as
absolutely
you mentioned, first of all, that's a really cool name for a band. I
yeah
like that name. But
yeah.
secondly, I don't think it works for the title of our song, right?
No, I think what we're going to call this song is Communication Breakup.
Off of Communication Breakdown.
Exactly. So here I am in Suno, and we're going to describe our song. So just for you listeners, if you have lyrics and you want to create the music around your lyrics, or you have a poem, I took a poem that was more lyrical and just put it in here and let it create music around it and turn it into a song. Um, you got to look for the rhythmic value. When you're looking at songs, you want to look for a kind of rhythmic value, which a lot of people have a hard time with rhythmic value and the rhymes and the things that make it flow. And then the pieces of the song, the verse, the chorus, you might have intros, outros, bridges. That's why I think for so many people, it feels so intimidating to create music. That's for me where, it was kind of difficult because I write a lot of poetry. I write poetry that doesn't necessarily rhyme as much. I have one, some of them, Logic Felt Within was one that rhymed. And there was a couple other, and they might part that rhymes, but that's the struggle I think people have. And I think what we want to do is open up the world of possibilities to people. So this screen here with the custom, you add your own lyrics. You have up to 10,000, I think it's maybe 7,000 characters. Not words, 7,000 characters, which gives you a bit of good line. Then you can describe the style here. So we're going to go, like I said, to simple, and we're going to just to put here, and we're going to talk about communication, and we're going to say communication in. Let me see if I can type that correctly. In today's world. Comes with conflict. And I have 200 characters to do this. So we might be using another technique. I'm going to even shorten this because what you got to think about using your characters wisely.
Yeah.
So communication, I don't even want to say in today's world, instead of often can lead to conflict. All right. Differences in power, opinion, gender, religion. What else do you think, Andrew?
I mean, I would say politics, money.
Politics, money. Emotion is the key. And I'm going to save NND, and I'm saving characters, and most don't understand it, meaning emotion. So it's in the same sentence. It should refer, knowing I'm going back to most don't understand it. Fear, betrayal, mistrust, shame, guilt. So these are some of the emotions that we might want to see if they discussed or that they can weave in here. What else are you thinking, Andrew?
I'm thinking, yeah, mistrust. I was going to say distrust, but I think mistrust covers it. What else?
See, I just ran out of characters.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. All right. That's good, I think.
Find equity. Aha! Fit it in under the 200 characters. See, that's where you kind of start to play. So that's one of the limitations of Suno is that you only have 200 characters. And I've actually written them and contacted them. So Suno, if you're watching this and listening, come on now. 200 characters doesn't give people to really create a good song. And I also wrote them this past week because there's a song I've been working on creating that had the gender. So it was about addiction, and the one gender was the addict, the other gender was the addiction, and I would name it in brackets before each line, or wherever I wanted the line to be sung by this different voice. And it would do it almost perfectly, and then it wouldn't. And I sent him a message. I said, this is not a toy, this is a tool. And for people who are using this to really communicate, to share, to in some ways could be monetization, definitely, but also I'm trying to create something to help people. And when you offer, there was a video on creating different voices. When you offer a tool and it doesn't work, this thing becomes a toy to play with, not to be used. So I haven't heard back from that since then. I know they're extremely always working on the platform. They're always improving it, making it better, and I'm sure they'll solve this. But I just say this for listeners and watchers, if you're watching and listening, that to play with this. But the 200 characters is a little short to really create a full-bodied song to me. So now we're going to go, we've got these lyrics. Inspiration is what style do we want it? So we can, these are basically the genres.
So how many genres do they have here? It looks like there's quite a menu.
There's quite a few, and even then you can, after you go to this, it can say more. So
and can you pick multiple? Can you choose
yeah, you can absolutely. So let's see if I pick, I was trying to really find some, let's do emotional lyrics. I'm looking for, see now sorry, I'm looking around my camera. My camera's right in the middle of the screen, as you know. So it's even minimized the options I used. Let me see what this does. Okay, so that gives me more room here. It used to give me, oh, here we go, rock.
Oh, if you hit the plus sign, does that open? Dr. If you hit the plus sign next to it, does that open up like?
That means add. So that's where I'm adding.
I thought that might open it up to like various styles of rock.
So we've added rock, we added emotional, I think. See, so you have this fighting, we could add fighting. Well, let's just keep it simple.
I like that smoky atmosphere. What about smoky atmosphere, Dr. E?
Okay. All right. You see how it disappeared then? So it's adding that to the genre. So let's go ahead and hit create and see what we come up with. And you guys will see how quickly this comes up with a song. So there's, see, it took from that, and then my kicker at the end is find equity. So now you see it chugging on something, and realize we're what, 30 seconds in?
Jeez, I can't believe that.
And now this doesn't have the full time, but let's just hear what it comes up with now.
Words like thunder, crash and burn.
And now we're going to go to the lyrics.
Lightning strikes where bridges turn. Power shadow stretches wide. Egos clash and truths collide. Find the balance in the sound. Equity lost can still be found through the fear and through the shame. Light the fire and stake your claim.
So what do you think, Andrew?
Well, I'm pretty impressed here. I mean, I'm amazed how quickly it took that
Drowning
and came
hearts
up with
that could be
concept for a
saved.
song.
Yeah.
The lyrics, I think, are the best part.
Mistrust builds
Yeah.
a fragile wall.
I don't know
So you
what
see it's weaving in those emotions.
Yeah.
It must
Cracks
trust at least.
appear and down they
It
fall.
brought in, now look at the later, you can kind of just
Find
read
the
later.
balance in
The
the
bridge brings in
sound.
religion, politics, money,
Equally
gender.
lost can still be found through the guilt and through the flame.
All right, now we've heard that, so let's go back now.
And we have another version of it, right?
Yep,
I'm curious to see. Did you play the second version or was that the first one?
that was the. I usually play the second because the second is the first, and then the one on top is the late. So you're in order of creation. You're creating the one below. So that one's usually done before the one on
Words
top.
like thunder crash and burn. Lightning strikes where bridges turn. Power shadow stretches wide. Egos clash and truths collide. Find the balance in the sound. Equity lost can still be found through the fear and through the shame. Light the fire and stake your claim. Opinions rise like tidal.
All right. Hey, viewers, our episode ran a little long, so we decided to split into 2 episodes. So stay tuned for the next episode to pick up where we left off. And until next time.